I often hear property experts call buy, renovate and sell as flipping. In my world, they're wrong. Let me explain. Today we're coming to you from my home so we can really get to know each other. And my name is Monty Nawaz. My channel is Agent M London. My aim to help you, the viewers, is to share some of my knowledge, my experience and my track record to help you get a head start on your own property journey, and also try and build a community of subscribers for this channel so that we can all help each other with our comments and questions and answers. In my experience, there's three types of flippers. Number one, buy, renovate and sell. This is called a property flip. We also have flipping contracts, and there's two types. One is off plan, and the second, which is what this video is about, is when you're really deep in the game, which I'll explain shortly. But let's get started with off plan flipping. Flipping a contract. This is when properties are purchased from developers, and I'm mainly going to focus with established developers that have projects in London. Over the course of the last decade, most developers have taken their projects overseas to Asia, which is mainly focused on Hong Kong, Singapore and Malaysia, and that's where they sell out on their projects. First stop is usually Hong Kong, second stop is Singapore, and third stop is Malaysia. Typically, what these developers do is they will set up an exhibition and advertise in the newspaper similar to this. And here we can see several projects that have been advertised in the paper, and it welcomes investors to come to a 5-star hotel and purchase off-plan units through an exhibition. This is typically buying off-plan. Now, as part of this purchase, you would normally pay 10% on the day and exchange on the contract. The key thing to really understand here is that once you're committed with the exchange, you are committed to fulfill your obligations on that contract, which is completing. Completing means that you've got to pay 100% of the agreed price, and then you get the keys and it's your apartment. Now, the key thing to understand here is once you exchange on these contracts, this contract has a clause within it that says that the contract is assignable. What does that mean? Assignable contracts mean that you are able to assign the contract to another buyer for a profit prior to the completion of that project. Typically, these developers will launch their projects before they've even started the works. And usually it takes 3 years from the time that you put down your 10% deposit for exchange until you have to come up with the balance 90% to complete. Now, just imagine you've paid 10% and you have now got a contract to purchase that property, so that property is yours. Within a 3-year period, you're able to flip that contract using the assignable clause, and you may gain £100,000. Let me explain. You purchased the property for £1 million by paying £100,000 10% deposit. You've now flipped the contract for £1.1 million and you've made £100,000 on your original £100,000 down payment. That's 100% profit. This is what I call flipping contracts. Is this a good strategy? In my world, no. High risk, and you've got other hurdles in place. This strategy has mainly been used by investors in Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia. And in 2014 and 15, there were many investors that were buying these projects and properties within these projects with a flip strategy in mind. There were other buyers that were buying these properties to live in, or for their children to stay in whilst they were studying, or as a buy-to-let investment. That would be a much better strategy. The problem with a flip strategy, point number one, the market could change. Point number two, the lenders could change their policy when it comes to mortgages. Point number 3, you don't have the funds to complete on your property and you're taking a risk. This is exactly what happened to investors from Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia. Originally, they were acquiring properties in Singapore, but they were also flipping properties in Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia. The key point to note is that the buyers were all foreign. Nobody in the UK was buying these properties, and no lender in the UK was funding the mortgage on a flip contract. When the Singapore, Hong Kong and Malaysia banks realized, they also stopped funding on flip contracts. So if this was your strategy, that's where you got caught high risk. So what happens if you fail to complete on a flip strategy contract? There's 2 things that can happen. One is that the developer can come after you. Point number 2 is that you rescind the contract, which means that the developer keeps your 10% and then they're able to sell the contract and the property to another buyer. This means you lose your 10%, but it doesn't end there. Because you're committed to the original contract, if the developer sells that property for less than the price that you agreed, you would also be liable to top up any loss that the developer makes. For example, you purchased for £100,000, you've now given 10%, which is £100,000. You've failed to complete on the property and you lose £100,000. If the developer then resells that property for £800,000, that means they're losing £200,000 from the original £1 million that they sold that property to you for. They have now got £100,000 from your deposit. They also have £800,000 from the new buyer, and there is a difference of £100,000. Who's liable for that? You as the flipper. So in one move, you've lost £200,000 based on a flip strategy, and you being absolutely naive in my eyes. Let me take you to my world. Deep in the game. This is where property investors, developers, or what I will simply call them is property players. Players like me. I often get opportunities landing on my desk which I would consider below market value. The reason for that is I have a track record and I'm a cash buyer. Plus, I've had an agency for 25 years. I've got international connections. I know lawyers, accountants, I know financial advisors, I know agents, and this is all of the areas that an opportunity lands on my desk. That's why I can clearly say I'm deep in the game. This strategy landed on my desk a few years ago, which is Bellow Street in Greenwich. A freehold house with a side garage. The great thing about this property is it also had the potential to create value on the original house, but also with a side extension on top of the garage. This is what I call having a property angle. Immediately, I knew I had to secure the contract. Another angle that we had to look at is what was the potential of the location. And Greenwich as a location was seeing a transformation, there was regeneration, and there was new gentrification coming into the local area. Plus, Greenwich has got lots of history and it's already a very nice, charming, established village. So that gives you an overview of why we acquired the contract, and we were willing to complete on the purchase too. Being deep in the game, what that allowed me to do was to flip the contract as well, without any risk. Or I could create value by getting planning approval and then sell the property. Second layer of value add. Finally, we could get the planning, complete the work, and also sell the property. So we've got 3 layers of comfort, no risk, What we decided to do was complete on the purchase. We then got the planning approval for value add. And thirdly, we sold the property with planning, without doing the work, money in the bank, and we moved on to the next purchase. This is what I call flipping in my world. So where you're being taught to buy, renovate and sell, and this is called a flip, in my world, we acquired, we did some administrative paperwork, which was getting the planning approval, and then without doing any work or getting our hands dirty, we sold. This is called a flip. If you want to learn how to flip, how to get opportunities, how to buy, renovate and sell, how to build a property portfolio, and a lot of you viewers out there are sending some questions in terms of how can you create passive income. So all of these topics will be discussed on the channel. For those of you that are new to the channel, I highly recommend that you watch some of my previous videos to get fully up to speed and for you to be part of this property journey. And if you have any questions or you would like me to do a video on a specific topic, write in the comments below and I will definitely make it happen. Flipping is not easy, and hopefully you've gained some knowledge, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Until then, Agent M out.